Hello everyone, welcome to History Forge. My name is Taylor Hamblin. Today I'm going to be talking about thinking like an historian, a topic that you probably see a lot now in your introduction of your history books or some websites. So how do we get our students to critically think and use the skills that historians have? I'm going to have students learn how to think like an historian by doing two things. One, analyzing primary sources, and the second one, building something historical using the skills they want to learn. These actions are extremely important because it's going to help motivate students to actually do well in your classroom. When they get to build something that is going to directly relate to skills that they want to learn, they're going to be extremely motivated to do well in your classroom. Now, if you're curious as to where we are in the current calendar, as you can see here, I got the very first research part 1 up, so the highlight right now. That is where we are in the current calendar. If I click into it, you would see this list, and if you scroll down to day 7, that's about when I mention to students about thinking like an historian and depth. So we really jump into it and really focus on what does it mean to think like an historian. Now, the first big resource I want to show you is about teaching with primary sources. You see that get tossed around a lot online. Now, what my team and I have done is we've created a list of primary sources that you can use. So right now, if you see my webpage, you see where it says list of primary sources. You can click that, the picture or the title below it, and you'll see our team. If you scroll down, though, you'll see where we get primary sources here. And if you keep scrolling down, you'll see the actual primary sources themselves. They are organized thematically and they're organized chronologically. So the big thing that we like to do on History Forge is, organize these primary sources because we like to teach from them. Teaching with primary sources is an extremely valuable thing you can be doing with your students. It's going to help them start thinking like an historian. Now, I've clicked into one of the actual primary source lessons so you can see what some of them might look like. If you scroll down, you'll see you have some maps of early America, specifically Virginia, and they come with questions too. So what you're going to do is you're going to introduce these primary sources in your classroom, focusing them on big topics that you might be talking about. So in this case, discovering America from the European perspective, or Native American and European relationships. But if you go back into the site, you'll see there's a lot more. Going back here, you can kind of see that's colonial America, revolutionary America, so on and so forth. So we have a lot of different sources, and we want to use these throughout the year. We want to present raw history to students and then give them prompts and questions. That way they can actually discover some things by themselves. History Forge has done a lot of this analysis with primary sources already. We have other articles and other videos about it. At the end of this video, I'll talk more if you want to see some of that stuff. But one of the big questions that we might get when we do this or we present this to teachers is this really helping my students? Wouldn't it be just much better for my students to memorize some facts and dates? That way they'd be ready for analysis. I think as teachers, we need to be very careful with the idea that you need to have a lot of dates and facts and those memorization skills down before you can analyze. I am not going to say that memorizing definitions and dates is not important, but I don't think it should be 100% of your classroom. Maybe closer to 15 to 20%. When my students did National History Day projects, they were extremely capable of being able to go very in-depth into a topic without having prior knowledge. They earned the prior knowledge as they went. So they would pick topics and I would help them do background information. So the fact that we need to teach all these students the same, 1,000 facts and dates and different figures from history, I find completely bogus. The students are completely capable of learning different information and then going in depth into their own topic. And yeah, it can be challenging, but the great thing is students are motivated to do it because they picked the topics. That's the entire point. They come into school, they did all that identity work that you did last, couple weeks with them, and they choose the topics that they're passionate about or ones that they think are going to help them in their futures. Therefore, they want to do awesome in your classroom. They want to kick butt when they come to your classroom. And as a teacher, isn't that what you really want? So before I get into the next big resource I wanted to show you, I forgot to mention this in the last slide. I have this article called Part 1, Teaching with Primary Sources and Skill-Based Assessment. This is a part, one of 5 of the article series. If you want to read it, it basically just goes into how do you teach with primary sources and how I graded it. So it could be helpful for you. All right, next resource. So this next resource is National History Day's categories. So the next part of like thinking like an historian in my mind is actually doing like an historian as well, creating stuff. This series is going to focus a lot on National History Day just because it's such a great program. And as far as like creating history, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and that's kind of why I like National History Day. They really subscribe to that idea. So you see like on the computer screen, I got documentaries, exhibits, paper, performance, and websites. History Day is awesome because of the resources they give you. If you scroll down, they have a lot of different ideas. They even have like examples from years in the past. And they have books too. They're awesome. So a lot of great stuff that you can get from National History Day. So remember, your students are choosing a category in National History Day based off their interest, and you would have done that interest work with them early on. And there's a couple activities you could do with them. For example, there's another History Day History Forge article. Going into it, it's basically the idea is letting students like look through the list and find skills and jobs that they would like to do. And then, for example, the very first one is, do you want to be a writer? Then you should write an essay for History Day. Do you want to be an actor? Hey, you should do a performance. That's what's cool about History Day is there's so many different ways to convince kids this is going to be good for them. And there's a lot of like really cool like co-collaborations with other classes that you could be doing. So we'll make a video about that later as far as collaborating with other teachers. But overall, really cool program for just the fact that a lot of different interests can go into it. So final thoughts on thinking like an historian or doing history. Honestly, the big 2 for me are teaching with primary sources and allowing students to create historical projects. Those 2 things kind of go hand in hand with each other, especially if you use the National History Day program. What does this mean for you during your class time? It means you're going to have to give more class time to helping students actually learn how to analyze primary sources. And again, History Forge has videos and articles on how to help you do that. Check out the end of the video if you want more of that. But you're going to have to give class time though too, which means you're going to have to cut out like things like lecture. If you're a teacher who's still, the person in front of the classroom all the time talking, you're going to have to change this stuff. If you really think that critical thinking is important in your classroom, if you think that critical thinking has to happen with historical discussion, you got to stop talking so much. You have to let the students talk. You have to let them do some thinking. For example, the history books that you give those students do the thinking for them. They just give them a bunch of facts and dates. So let students have those raw materials, those raw sources, those primary sources, and let them come up with their own answers. Yeah, they might be wrong sometimes. They might make some mistakes, but you're there as the professional to challenge those mistakes. Let them figure it out through that process of critical thinking. Last point I want to make is about grading these kind of, primary source reflections or thinking. You're going to have to stop doing the ABCD style tests. You're going to have to let go of thinking that learning about history is just being able to like get the correct fact. That's not thinking like an historian, nor is it anything good about history. In fact, doing that is what's going to hurt students in the long run. So you got to fix your grading. If you don't like that idea, I really encourage you to read about social studies methods and see all the research that proves against it. James Lowen's a great resource, and if you want to check out a university, Stanford's Beyond the Bubble is also awesome. Hey, that's all the stuff we have for thinking like an historian and doing history. Definitely check out the video description because all the stuff I talk about and show you is down there, so please check that out. Also, social media stuff, like, subscribe, all that fun jazz. We're going to be coming back tomorrow, whenever I make these videos. We're going to be coming back with more stuff, especially those first couple weeks of school. So if you're really trying to figure out, like, what do I do those first, few weeks, especially that first, couple days, keep checking these videos out because we do want to help you and give you more resources. But other than that, take care. Bye. What up? So, if you liked that last video, I got some more resources is what I meant to say, friends. So we got more resources for you. Remember that we did this series last year where we made a bunch of like history videos that review each week. So as you can see, I got U.S. History Project-Based Learning Week 2. So that's in the videos. So I'm going to try my best to make sure it pops up on this video. But also we have this article called Part 1, Teaching with Primary Sources and Skill-Based Assessment. Really cool article series because it goes into step-by-step how I planned on teaching with primary sources. Not only that, in the boxes below, I created a fictional character, Mr. Ramirez, and I basically created the first history lesson with him. And so the kind of thinking that I did, the kind of thinking that my friends do, my colleagues do, that do this kind of stuff, that is that, we kind of created a fictional story for that. So if you're interested in learning how to teach with primary sources, check out that article, check out this video, like the buttons and subscribe to the things and all that fun stuff. But hey, thanks for coming by, guys. Take care.